Welcome back to the Today Show. I'm your host, Christopher Power. And with us here is Johanna, who has a hidden talent of yodeling, and she may or may not do it again if I can persuade her near the end.
I will certainly, if you want.
So, I have a question for Mom. Not many people know this, but there's actually a web content accessibility guideline for websites. Now, it gives an outline to ensure that sites are more accessible and inclusive for everybody. But in your opinion, what do you feel the biggest challenge is when it comes to accessing web content?
Well, because she's not quite at that age yet, we haven't come across some of it. But on a social level, it's remembering that when you post a picture that there are adults just like Johanna on there. And when you post a picture, it is so important to give the details of not just, hey, we had a fun day and a beautiful picture of your day, but to describe what's on that picture, where you are, who you're with, maybe the look on your face if you were so excited. It's making sure that you're including everybody in your everyday conversations. Memes, they don't mean a whole lot if your screen reader can't read what's on it, right? So making sure that we're including people in those funny jokes, because I mean, why wouldn't you laugh too, right? So it's making sure that you're always mindful of everybody else that's on your Facebook. And I'm trying to do it a little more. And it's practice, right? You don't realize it until you live it. And with having Johanna, I have made so many wonderful friends who are blind. So I'm trying myself to make sure that I remind myself that I post, a full description of what I'm posting.
So, give me an example of what you mean by that.
So if I post a picture of Johanna, say at Mount Evergreen having a great day tubing, instead of putting she had a wonderful time and posting the picture, I would want to put, look at Johanna go. She went and had a tubing day at Mount Evergreen, pictured as Johanna in her black snowsuit, the blue sky, the sun shining on a beautiful sunshiny day, the white powdery snow, just as much description as possible.
Okay. Now, with being online, have you found that there's any character limit to anything like this so far?
No, not that I've
Mm.
known. But we are just moving into that accessible technology with screen readers, and that sort of thing. So a refreshable braille display unit will only allow so many characters, but once you've read it, you hit a button and it brings up the next characters for them to be able to read it. Again, we're slowly getting into the technology side of it also, the voiceover.
The Orcam.
Well, we have so many different pieces of technology that we have yet to explore. But as she gets older, only time will tell what those actual bumps in the road are.
Sure. Well, that's neat. So, I mean, when most people hear the conversation of accessibility, we feel that we're doing enough or we feel that we're doing something that should appease everybody. But a lot of the times we implement things that we think are helpful and that aren't. Is there something that we could implement overnight that you feel would give an amazing impact?
Honestly, braille on everything. So I was asked to be a part of our accessibility committee here at our local hospital.
Because she has a walk.
Because I have you, yes. But so for me, when I walk through that hospital, in every section, like the x-ray department, for example, you walk up to it, on the wall there's a great big plaque, it says x-ray department. X-ray is embossed, the X, the R, and all that. So why is there no braille on it, so that when you're walking the hall you could trail with your hand and say you've reached the x-ray department? So it's little steps like that where I have tried to encourage equal literacy. Knowledge is power, right? And if it's not made available, you're powerless.
Or, sorry,
So for
Johanna,
me,
you wanted to add?
sorry, it's just making sure that information is made available to everybody at all times.
I think that's a really good point. If you're embossing letters on signage, I mean, how much is it to get the machine to go down and do braille underneath it as well? It seems to be more of a layout on a graphics template than anything else.
That's all it is it's dots. And it's not hard to put dots on things.
Or even just brailing a piece of paper and hanging it on the door.
Well, it's a little bit different. They want to make sure that it can be sanitized because it's a high touch surface. But if they are going to go as far as, embossing the letters in print, you can throw a few dots on there. It's not that hard.
Yeah, otherwise you're reliant on someone to say, "Hey, go to exam room 3," and, well, hey, there's no way for me to get there. You're gonna have to walk me down and whoever that person may be.
Exactly. The other thing that I've been pushing for is wayfinding apps. So they have wayfinding apps in universities for students to get from point A to point B, just using their phone, and it's a lot like Google Maps. So I've been trying to advocate for our hospital to implement wayfinding, and it's not just for the visually impaired. It would also help new doctors, new nurses who have never been there before get to where they got to go a whole lot faster. So it's not just a blind thing. It's going to help a lot of people overall. But wayfinding, where you just have your app, you can walk into the hospital and not have to have somebody walk you through. You find your way on your own. It's a small, simple concepts.
I like that. I like the reference to GPS because I was about to ask you, what do you mean by that? But that's really neat. So having, you're going to whatever hospital it is, you pull up the app and it kind of gives you everything that you need to do.
And there actually is, I forget, I think it's in Mississauga, but don't quote me on that. There is a hospital in Canada that does have a wayfinding system. So it is possible. It's just a matter of trying to implement it in all hospitals, same
Right.
as all the universities. Once you open the door in one place, it should open it for many more.
Opportunities knocking, just let it in.
Absolutely. Now, I understand that Mom and Johanna, you guys are working with your local MP regarding some new laws and policies around accessibility. Tell me more about what you're working on.
You want to give it a shot? Would you like me to take that one? Okay.
Tip.
So in 2019, our local MP, Mr. Eric Malillo, was door knocking before the election. I was going around. He's, super young. He's the first time MP. And he came across my door and said, if I'm elected, how can I help you? And it was like, oh, honey, you better sit down. So when she was a baby, everything I noticed was inaccessible, from baby toys to everything.
Honestly, baby toys that I felt aren't really accessible.
They all have print ABC on them, but
They all have colors.
yeah, well, I'm not so much worried about the colors, but if it has ABCs in print, it should be in Braille as well. So I took some time in my postpartum state to make a few phone calls to a whole bunch of companies, and I got the same answer from them all was, "Oh, ma'am, we're really sorry. We've never been asked this before." And it doesn't sound right to me because she's not the first child to be born with this extraordinary ability. So
Right.
how have you never been brought up this question? And so I called Procter and Gamble, I called PepsiCo, I called, you name it, I called them. And I mean, I was not in a happy state at that point. So by the time Eric came along, I voiced my concerns of, poisonous labels. A sighted child can see a skull and cross and know that maybe I shouldn't touch that. On the bottom of those bottles, those plastic bottles, it is embossed how many times they have been recycled. So if you can take the time to emboss a recycled, you can emboss a tactile feature or a braille feature that says whether or not she's going to burn her skin, or maybe I shouldn't drink that, something that says this is danger, please don't touch. So I brought that up to Eric, and the first thing he said was, "Oh, so you need a bill." Do I? Because I'm not sure how all of this works. So he
Right.
told me if I'm elected, I am allowed one private member's bill, and I wasn't sure what I was going to fight for. And in doing so, he was elected. And this wonderful young man has written a bill. And so he's just waiting for his turn to present it because he's got to go through the long line of
And blah, blah,
politicians
blah, and all that.
and all the blah, blah, blah. And basically, what it will state is that all hazardous materials should have some form of a tactile representation
Yep.
for the visually impaired. Our consumer laws state that all packaging and labeling must be legible to the consumer, but nowhere does it define a consumer as somebody who is visually able. There's a fine line there, and I called consumer protection, and they tried to tell me that it was, one of those unseen things that it's just assumed that these laws are for, your everyday average Joe, and
Sure.
that's not right. So we're just, again, we're trying to open the door to something better. If we start with hazardous materials, prescriptions, perhaps, those little steps will open the doors to equal literacy and equal opportunity.
I like that. It's really neat that the local MP was able to ask about a private bill. I mean, not many people know that they have the opportunity to ask for, one private bill or multiple. And you're right, equal literacy and opportunities when you're reading things. And even as I'm listening to you, it's something that I never really considered myself was, well, yeah, I mean, if you had a gallon of paint thinner sitting there or toluene or even bleach, and how do you know? I mean,
Then they're in the
or
exact same bottle as a vinegar bottle. And I
yeah,
mean, you keep vinegar with some of your cleaning supplies, depending on who you are. And you can open it and smell it, know that it's vinegar. So what's in this next bottle? Maybe I'll shake that on my French. Well, no, maybe you won't shake that on your French fries. You know what I mean? So
right.
it can go really, like, there are pet products that look like a deodorant container. Feels the same, same with cat food and a can of tuna. What's what?
That's still cat food.
Well, it is. You're right. But
Okay, okay, okay. Here. I'll I'll give you something. A can of chicken noodle soup with a can of mushroom soup. Same thing, right?
she just wants to be able to tell the difference. Sorry, I'm
And
losing power to my laptop here.
No, I think
and
that's a fabulous example, Johanna. You're right. When we look at branding and we put things in packaging, a lot of the people, to your mom's point, are not considering the braille message or embodied message to these things. They're just simply saying, "Oh, okay, a can of tomato soup's the same thing. Here you go." But how do we tell the difference? You're right.
and if you were with somebody else, maybe they grabbed the wrong thing by mistake, and you go to open it, and you're like, "This isn't what I asked for," right?
Or if you're allergic to something, you think you're
Yeah.
buying chicken noodle soup and you get cream of mushroom and you're allergic to mushrooms. No, it's very eye opening, and I hope we get these changes put in sooner rather than later. I really hope the MP is able to move that.
Well, and the way I see it is they put Braille on our currency. They want them to be able to spend that money independently, but close all the doors for them to be able to shop independently.
Wow,
That's just weird.
that's absolutely right. That
Weird.
is weird. Well, we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back.